Greetings and welcome to the Thirsty Mage, the podcast that's found time and opportunity to take on some of our old foes. I'm your host for this episode, David Lloyd, and this episode we'll be discussing the upcoming Square Enix game, Infinity Strash. I hope I pronounced that right. Strash.
I think it's Strash.
Strash.
Like slash. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Dragon Quest, the Adventure of Dai. I don't even know why they need the Infinity part, but whatever. And we'll follow that up with some talk about a few old RPGs that we've decided it's about time to knock off the backlog. Coming up for air after nearly drowning in a tidal wave of review titles, it's Jordan Rudick.
I'm still drowning. Like I am trying to come up for air here, but the drowning, the sea of review titles has not subsided. Definitely one of those. September onward, between September, October, November, you feel like you get the bulk of releases just throughout the year. This year's been a little bit more spread out, but there's still a lot of smaller and middle-sized games coming out around now. And then obviously Mario Wonder at the end of the month, Spider-Man as well. November's going to have some big stuff too. So yes, drowning for sure. Able to get a little bit of fresh air. And one of the games I'm going to be talking about tonight is strictly because I had to have something that I chose like myself just for fun, not for the purpose of covering it or writing about it or anything. I'll talk about it a little bit here, but that's strictly a Jordan's pleasure choice that I needed to have in amongst all of this more obligatory game playing, I suppose.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm drowning, but it's because I got a nasty cold that I'm hoping doesn't come across in this recording. So yeah, if you hear any sniffs or snoots or whatever, I apologize ahead of time. It's that time of year. I got kids in school. There's no way to avoid it. It's just
a matter
rule
of
of life.
when, not if,
Yep.
right? That's September, exactly. October, when you've got school-age kids at home and they're bringing goodness knows what kind of germs back with them, with not washing hands and putting everything in their mouths still. And so, yeah, you actually sound pretty good, David. So maybe you're at the tail end of it here. I don't know, but yeah, you still sound fine right now, I think. But
yeah, and I actually put in my first request, and I can't even fathom how long it's been because I got an email and it's October and there was a spooky game that was being promoted and I thought, oh, why not? It's been a while, and we'll see. I don't know if I'm necessarily gonna get it or not, but I might have to end up shelling out a few bucks for it because it looks kind of cool. So
you couldn't let me be the only one reviewing video games in 2023. So I appreciate.
I gotta share the misery
the volunteering
once in a while anyway.
Well, misery loves company, and there's definitely some misery to share on this week's episode. Just as one more thing, I wanted to talk a little bit about sports injuries, apropos of nothing, because normally I'd be playing basketball on a Thursday night, which is tonight when we're recording. But I either like severely jammed or sprained, or maybe those are the same things, my pinky finger on my left hand. And it is swollen up, like it's like 50% bigger than my other pinky right now. I went for an X-ray yesterday. I don't think anything's broken or fractured or anything, but it's pretty sore. I've had trouble kind of bending it and kind of even straightening my hand a little bit. So I've got like a claw grip in one hand. And so I've been playing a few games on PC actually, because it's been a little bit easier to play PC games on keyboard and mouse without needing my left hand as much. So yeah, I don't know if David, you've had any kind of sports injuries that kept you out of the game for a little bit. Anything? My hands are just they seem so fragile since I started playing basketball again. Like I'm jamming fingers left, right, and center. At least with hockey, I've got gloves on.
Yeah, I think my last injury was the same thing. I actually did break my finger, the ring finger on my right hand.
Right.
I was playing hockey and I took a slap shot off the hand.
Oh no! Yeah.
Yeah. And the frustrating thing is you go to the hospital for a few hours, you get X-rays, and they're like, "Yep, it's broken."
Yeah,
and and then I could have
told you that.
Go home.
Like, yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
yeah. There's nothing they can do about it. It's just go home.
That's it. Just gotta wait. Yeah, that's the thing about, I guess, finger injuries in particular, is that there's no real solution to it. It's just time and rest and maybe some icing. I did some icing the first night on Tuesday when I got hurt, but yeah, I figured maybe take a week off here and see how next week feels. And I've actually been taping my fingers a bunch too. I'll tape two of them together like my pointer fingers on both hands have been jamming, so I've been taping them with my middle fingers, and I haven't had any jams there. But of course, my good luck ran out eventually, and then I ended up jamming my pinky on Tuesday. So
Yeah. Now
yeah.
the worst is when the pinky on my right hand is permanently twisted at the top because
Okay.
I took a slash and it like cracked.
Right.
Oh, what's that? The cartilage. Like so, the cartilage in my knuckle on the top
Yeah.
got like permanently moved. So now like the tip of my pinky points towards me a little. Like it's not straight anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was nothing like short of like cracking it the other way, which I wasn't gonna test. It's just a permanent fixture. Like I feel no pain in it or anything, but it just looks kind of funny that I've got this
Yeah.
pinky that's pointing towards my ring finger. So my right hand is, yeah, it's hockey has done a number on it, I guess. But
I mean, I think anyone's first guess would be, for someone in Canada, if you see a slight deformity in someone's
yeah, it's probably
hands or
hockey
feet or
related.
toes or teeth, it's probably
Face,
hockey
yeah,
related, right? So,
yeah.
yeah, I
Well, I
think
have a
that's fair.
permanent scar on my lip from taking a hockey puck off the face. So
There you go. There you go. Well, it's made us all the tougher for it, I suppose.
yeah.
Maybe tough enough to handle a particularly trying new game here. I'm recording this. We're recording this before my review goes live. The game actually did already come out to no fanfare, to very few reviews. I don't even know if there's many Switch reviews of the game out there at all. The only ones I saw around launch or at launch were for PS5, and maybe that was to put the best version out there and get that one reviewed. I don't think it helped. I think the review Metacritic is still like 60 or under, and even I think that's high. So the game we're talking about is Infinity Strash, Dragon Quest: The Adventure of Dai. Certainly a mouthful. I thought there was more punctuation in that title than there may actually
Needed.
be. I think there's a colon after Strash. But Dragon Quest: The Adventure of Dai is, and maybe this is the cause of the awkward kind of title convention, is that it's based on an anime, which is also based on a manga. So I think that the manga started maybe in the late 80s or 90s, and then there was an anime kind of closer to that time as well. But in the last 4 or 5 years, there's a more recent anime version of The Adventure of Dai, and I think that's what this
Yes.
game is based on. So Infinity Strash is an action RPG, but you learn pretty quickly on that that's a horrible kind of way to classify the game because there's very little RPG and there's very little action to it. Actually, as it turns out, the the story revolves around Dai. He's a boy in a small village. It's actually, I think it's like an island full of monsters, and he's he's going on that hero's journey. You end up meeting a few different friends along the way that join you. There's a fellow that comes to try to train you in the ways of being a hero, and so, gosh, where to even begin with this game? I think the story is fine. You kind of encounter all these different bosses, and you have like kind of repeated battles against them, which feels very manga anime style, right? Like that you don't just fight one guy once in one episode and then they never come back. In this game, you'll fight the same bosses over and over again, or they'll keep showing up at least until they become friends with you, or until you finally defeat them and move on to the next chapter. So there's that repetition built into it, which ends up becoming problematic. What's really problematic about the game is that there's effectively no exploration. So each chapter kind of takes place on a different island of the world, and rather than going to like different areas and exploring around and talking to people and going on quests and side quests and things like that, there's none of that. Instead, each island on the overworld map is becomes filled with these little map nodes, 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 that you click on, and then they deliver either a story bit or a slightly kind of adventuring type bit where you kind of you go around like a small area or a dungeon or something like that. Very, very small. Emphasis on small. And then the third possibility is just a boss fight, basically, or an arena fight against some enemies where you're not exploring at all and everything's just kind of contained within one small area. And that's basically the whole game, is going through dozens and dozens of these nodes, most of them being story based ones. And then on occasion you'll get the exploration one, and then sometimes you'll get the boss fight ones. Maybe you might get a few boss fights back to back, where it's Dai taking on the same boss a couple of times, or it's one of your party members maybe grouping up with another one to take on a different boss, as if they're kind of fighting them in a different part of the world or something, or a different part of the island that you're on, the continent. But yeah, the game just doesn't flow. It's not cohesive. The story parts are not really animated. They're very rarely animated. They're kind of like still cutscenes, as if they're just taken screenshots from the anime and then they narrate over top of it, or the characters do talk over top of it as well. But I think there's a narrator as well, and that's kind of all you get for story wise. So when you have a string of those story map nodes all in a row, is basically just, I don't know, like you're just listening to the story as if it's an audiobook or something like that. There's very little to see other than, again, the still cutscene scenes that are playing out, I guess. The boss fights are fine. They're not too bad. You there are like experience points that you gain, and you do kind of unlock some new abilities as you go on. Not too many though. What's problematic is about the boss fights is that there's kind of some steep difficulty steps up, steep difficulty curves, I guess, that show up from time to time, where you can feel like you're massively underleveled, or just really not powerful enough to solve the situation. It's not necessarily a skill issue. You really do have to go out and grind, and I'll talk about a few ways that you can do that in a second. David, had you seen anything about this game? Had you read any reviews or seen? I feel like the marketing for this one just kind of fell entirely flat.
I'm trying to remember where I saw. I remember watching a trailer for it on somebody's. It was either a Nintendo Direct or a Sony State of Play. I remember seeing like a 2 minute video, and that this could have been like 6 months or a year ago. And then I was kind of keeping an eye on it on Steam, and then I noticed that the reviews were mixed, and then I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's interesting. And so then I went online, and it was like trending under 5. So I'm like, oh man, like I
Hmm.
didn't think it was gonna be this bad. And even now, I have the trailer up on Steam, and I don't like it's 95% like the anime scenes. Like there's very
Yeah.
few actual gameplay scenes in the trailer, so it's like I could see where this is going with the how it's set up or whatever. But yeah, like, and I can't believe this is a full price game.
Yeah.
Like
I
I'm
think
sure
that's a
people could
big
argue that's
surprise for me too. Is that this isn't like a spin-off or experimental or like a $20 or $30 game. Like it plays like one, it feels like one, but for this to be a full retail price AAA kind of priced game is bizarre to me. There's no substance to it at all. It's so vapid and just boring and uninteresting.
it's funny.
I
It's kind of
Yeah.
like I was even thinking like all these, because I was thinking it's like we never used it. Like these games never used to be full price, and I was thinking like where were they or stuff. But when you think of like we used to have the DS and 3DS, like that's where you got your like half price games
Hmm.
that were good. Usually they were good, but these types of games would be on like the handhelds that way, or you get them on like PSP or Vita for like half the price. Like I don't remember paying for these kind of spin-off type games like full price for them, and it's unfortunate that it's like there really is no platform for them anymore. Like
Hmm.
when you think of like if you want to get them on a Nintendo console, like Switch is it now, right? So
Yeah, I mean, I can't even believe this game has I think it has a native PS5 version, which makes no sense given that half the game is just these still cutscenes. Like it's just not making use of the console's power or capabilities at all. If anything, this should be a Steam and Switch game exclusively. And why would it appear on any other platforms? That's not making use of. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to recoup the cost at that point, but yeah, there. So yeah. Anyways, more about the game. So your party, you get to a party of four. Very rarely do you actually all fight together, which is kind of silly. Most of the battles that you take place in, you are forced to use a particular character, whether that's Dai, who's kind of a swordsman and he has a few magical abilities. Pop is like your offensive mage. Mam is like a cleric, at least initially, and then later on she gets a job class change to a different class that changes up her style a little bit, which is fun. and then a fourth character, which maybe for spoilers I won't talk too much about him, but you do get a fourth character early on, and he just plays very much like Dai, except a little bit more of a heavy hitter. He has a cool ability with his armor that lets him kind of be shielded from damage and stuff like that. But yeah, other than kind of just the boring minute to gameplay, there is minute to minute gameplay, I should say. There is a roguelike element to the game as well, which I think they're trying to really push on players to extend their playtime, or to make it feel like the game has more to offer than it does. The game, funnily enough, keeps reminding you about this roguelike element, the Temple of Recollection. It encourages you to keep going back there. You probably need to beat the game on the normal difficulty, unless you're really, really, really skilled at it. But you need kind of the buffs and the item pickups that you get from the temple to empower your characters and to empower their abilities. So you do kind of need to go there to get through the game. If you play on the easy difficulty, you don't need to go there, because the easy difficulty is ridiculously simple by comparison. Then there's only two difficulties, which I think is already an issue. Although you do unlock a kind of a different, harder mode after you roll credits. But the Temple of Recollection, this roguelike element to the game, you go there, and basically in groups of five, we could call them, what's the strata, which is what Train Odyssey term. So in strata of five floors, you just take on waves of enemies, and then at the end of each one, you choose which door you want to go into to get to the next floor, and that door will kind of dictate what bonus stat bump you get in the dungeon. However, it's roguelike, which means you start at level 1 every time you go to the temple. So none of your experience gains carry over. You're kind of starting from 1 every single time you're there. There's no saved progress or anything like that at all. I think the only thing that might save is that the temple sometimes gives you a hint about what's coming next. Again, not really something that saves. I think that you're kind of completely starting from scratch every single time. The reason you would go to this temple is to get materials to upgrade your bond memories and to acquire new bond memories. Bond memories are basically the only thing you equip to your characters. So there's no armor, there's no weapons. The only thing you get are bond memories, which are like these little, they look like cards. And they kind of, I think they depict scenes from the anime or the manga. You equip up to 5 bond memories, you get more slots, 5 or 6. I think you get more slots open up as you level up and get through the game. Equipping the bond memories, it'll increase your attack, your defense, your magic, your final abilities or your ultimate abilities, increase your defense, all those kind of things. So acquiring more of these bond memories and better ones and strengthening the ones you have is an important part of the progression, and one of the few elements of the progression. There are experience points. You do gain levels. The level up bumps are very minor, I guess. Some of the bond memories that you can equip will be like the equivalent of gaining 10 levels, for example. So you really want to get some of those good ones from doing the Temple of Recollection. What really sucks about this roguelike part, and again, you understand that built into roguelike as a term, as an idea, is the idea that if you die, you lose everything. And that happens here. And it's very, very frustrating to get to, like, say, the third or fourth or fifth strata and then experience this crazy rise in difficulty that you maybe weren't expecting, and then you get through a couple floors and then you get killed, or you get to like the fifth floor, which is generally like a boss fight, the final floor of each strata, and then you get taken out by the boss, and you've lost every single all the items you've acquired, all the level up or the kind of boosting materials, crafting materials that you've gained. They're all gone, maybe you spend an hour or two doing that. It's very it's just kind of takes the wind out of your sails, right? You feel very defeated after that, literally. And I don't think that works for a game like this. I think there has to be some persistence. Maybe you lose half of the materials. Maybe you have to sacrifice a few of the bond memories or some of the materials if you die. There has to be some give or take, right? It can't just be all or nothing. I don't think that makes for a very fun experience in an action RPG like this one's purporting to be. The gameplay in the temple is fine. It is fun to feel like, you are getting tougher and tougher opponents, and you have to be more frugal with your health, right? Like Mam can heal you, but her healing spells, obviously they're on a cooldown and they don't heal that much. So healing strictly through her, and because it can only happen in combat, she can't heal you in between floors, which is annoying. Uh, it means she's not going to be the be all end all. And if she dies, there's also no way to, at least that I ever came across, way to resurrect characters. So if she dies, that your run is almost at the end. Yeah, the temple gameplay is fun. It is you kind of go against tougher monsters. Some of them will start to poison you. You can acquire some single use items through spending the currency that you gain there, but yeah, the fact that you lose everything at the end is just not very fair, not very fun. I don't think. So that's the roguelike component. That I think that's meant to be like half of this game, honestly, because every chapter or so that you complete, I think there's 7 chapters in the game. Every chapter that you complete, after the second or third, it opens up new strata, or like a new strata limit in the Temple of Recollection. So they are, and again, messages keep popping up in the game that can encourage you to go there. Oh, are things too tough for you? You should probably go to the Temple of Recollection and get some new bond memories and level up your skills. It's like they're just kind of beating you over the head with it. And it's really, I haven't seen that in a lot of games, let alone like a game like this that just keeps pushing you to do like this side mode that you might want to ignore, or that again I don't think is designed super well. It's odd for the game to advertise that part of it so much. It does seem to know its limitations to some extent and know that there's just not a ton of content here. What else can I say about the Adventure of Dai? Yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling like this is me like after our lost recording our Lost Sphere episode. Like I'm just feeling very like blah. I don't want to finish it, but I actually did finish this game. I played through most of it. I didn't do any of the post game stuff. Again, there is a new difficulty, and you can kind of refight the bosses, but you have to do a ton of grinding to do that, and the grinding just isn't very fun. The combat again it's fine. There's just not enough of it, and there's not enough variety to it. Fighting the same boss multiple times in a row is not fun. I don't know. Again, it might be fun to watch that in an anime, right? To watch like how the hero changes up their strategy, or maybe they learn about a weakness of their opponent and they do that. But in a game, it's not that fun to do because you're not necessarily doing all that much different. Like, yeah, the enemy's attacks might be different. You might have a new ability to use or something like that, but I think it doesn't make for a good video game, honestly. I don't know if there's anything else I can say about Infinity Strash. David, is there anything else you want to know about it? Any questions you have about it?
No, I mean, I think you
You
covered
hear the
most of it.
pain in my voice as I talk about it.
Yeah, it's like, you certainly sold me on that. Yeah, I just pass on this one. I'll
It's
wait.
killing me. Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
wait for it to one day hit the bargain bin of like 10, $20, maybe pick it up for a larf or something. But
I mean, I was gonna say like part of my spiel was gonna be like even if there's a demo of it, don't try it. Or if there is a demo of it, but trust what it's telling you. Like if you try a demo and you're like, oh, this is really boring, yeah, that doesn't get better than that. I think as soon as you realize how the game is delivered through these map nodes, you'll be like, "Oh, this doesn't work at all. Like this is not for again." We think of Dragon Quest as being like this really charming, endearing world. It's just so vibrant, filled with cool characters, you know, wonderful music and sound effects, and yeah, there are slimes and some of the familiar monsters in this game, but other than that, it doesn't feel very Dragon Questy. Yes, it has that Toriyama art to it, but there's so few kind of meaningful character interactions, because of the still cutscenes, because there's no exploring. You don't feel like the world has any scale or reality sense of reality to it. Yeah, it's just a big miss for me. It's one of the I think it's one of the lowest review scores I've ever given. Yeah, I'm giving it a 4. Again, you can check out my review on NWR, but yeah, I big misfire here. I think that I called it one of the worst, if not the worst, Dragon Quest spin-off, and until I see something worse, I think this is gonna take the title for that.
yeah, it's funny. It reminds me of I just recently had a downer of a experience with Square Enix because I tried out the Ever Crisis,
Yes, yes, right.
and I kind of figured it was going to be disappointment, but I thought I'd give it a shot anyway. And it seems to have kind of the same notes where it's like you play it in like 5 minute spurts. Like it's like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah.
well, you know,
This
here's a
has that too. Yeah,
yeah, it's like here's a menu, and you click on the next mission, and it's like, okay, well here's the beginning of like Final Fantasy VII, and it's like, you know, you he jumps off the train and he fights a couple people, and then back to the menu, and then it's like,
yeah,
okay, so now I get to select the next one, and it's like, oh well, there's a conversation where they're, you know, that the avalanche is opening a door, there's bad guys you fight, back to the menu. It's like, wow.
yeah. That's so much like Infinity Strash, and you look at the difference between one being a mobile game and one is a AAA multi-platform release, right?
Yeah.
There's something that doesn't work, right? Like you can see how Ever Crisis is tailored to be played on a phone in short bursts. Infinity Strash, you're saying you're going to make a game like that on PS5, PS4. It doesn't make it's. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get
And
why it
it's
exists. Like,
sad too because Ever Crisis looks like it looks like an amazing way to play Final Fantasy VII. Like they
yeah,
basically took remake and then redid Final Fantasy VII in that engine sort of thing. Like
mm-hmm.
there's a bit of a difference. Like there's turn based and everything,
Yeah,
but yeah, like it just goes. It just like sucks the fun out of it. It's like
yeah.
you could have made such a wonderful game, and now you've like butchered it with the segmentation of like, well, you know, we're not gonna bother having you like you know, walk through Midgar, which is like part of like the greatest part of the game or whatever, is
Mm.
just like you know, walking through Midgar and exploring things, and it's like you went to all this work. It's like, why didn't you just put like, I know what the answer is, they wanted to make a gotcha game where they're like siphoning money out of you, so they segmented it off. But
I mean, it's not a replacement for Final Fantasy VII. It's like another way to experience, right? Or for fans of
crappy
that who
way.
want a mobile version of it, right? Like
Yeah,
it's not meant to be a facsimile. It's its own thing that's just for fans of that game, maybe. But if you want to walk through Midgar, they've got a great way for you to walk through Midgar, right? Like Final Fantasy VII Remake is that way to do that, and then Rebirth next year. Like, yeah, maybe this is just again, just they're going to keep milking this Final Fantasy VII, th- cash cow for as long as they can until the third game comes out. Maybe the third game gets DLC. Who knows? I can see mobile cash ins just making a lot of
yeah.
sense for them and probably making a lot of money for them, truthfully.
Yeah. Well, the
But
only
yeah,
great thing about this whole thing is that I've teenage David has been vindicated with Square Enix canonically confirming that it is Kate Sith.
oh, I don't even. I'm not upset about it, but I think it's really dumb. Actually, I don't
I'm
like
not convinced
the
it's real. I think it's a troll.
I hope so because I don't like the whole like let's announce formally in some kind of posting that we're gonna change it to the way that you've been saying it that's wrong. Like we're gonna make sure the way you've been saying it wrong is actually the way we want to use it. I don't like that whole thing. I'm like just that's not what it's supposed to be. Like don't just don't let people just to make them feel good about themselves. Like no, like it's a whole Aerith era thing again, and they
Yeah,
actually did that. They actually changed it to Aerith, like it was supposed to be. Like don't keep the wrong one. Go
yeah,
back to the right one. You did that with Aerith, but I don't know. Like it's just funny to me. I'm sure. Yeah, maybe it's part of like the whole getting people talking and creating buzz and social media and everything like that. But
well, we got one more Square Enix game to talk about,
yes,
and
yes.
I'm
Let
curious
this
what
is
you think of it.
this is a palate cleanser for all the trash we've been talking
Well,
about
that's
the
good
last
to hear. We
15 minutes.
can't pile on. We don't want to lose our sponsorship.
No, we don't. And I suppose that might happen with you later on here the episode too. But for me, yeah, I this is my game that I chose because I wanted to play it. I've been wanting to play it. Funny enough, I was gifted a physical copy of it maybe a couple Christmases ago, but haven't played it yet. And then noticed it was on the PS Extra / PS Premium list, and that's Nier Replicant. Nier Replicant is a kind of remake of the original Nier game. I think it came out originally on PS3. Nier Replicant came out a couple years after Nier Automata, and it's good. Like the funny thing is, like, I don't want to start necessarily with a criticism, but this is kind of my impression of it. Like, I think I'm near the first ending. We'll call it ending A. I think I'm getting close to that. Nier Replicant feels like the first attempt at Nier Automata. Like, it feels like the first version of that game, and so you can see how much they learned from developing Nier to make its pseudo sequel, I suppose, or make the follow up in Automata. Nier Replicant's fun. Like, it feels very much the same. Like, you have that kind of like drone-ish thing, except it's a book. It's a Grimoire Vice. He's this kind of magical text that follows you around. He does the magic part, and then you do the sword swinging part. You play this swordsman who you can name in the game. You are basically the protector of your sister Yona. She has a disease. You're trying to cure her. That's the first part of the game, and then the second part of the game, you're trying to rescue her from a force that's captured her. You kind of have this central hub town where you keep going back to get quests, to help townspeople with their chores and their side objectives. I guess those are the side quests that you kind of get in town, and then there's a character Popola who lives in a library or works in a library, and she's kind of the main story plot driven quest giver. So you keep going back to her, and then she sends you to different parts of the world. It's not a huge world. Like, you can run through it in, like, 5 to 10 minutes. But you're going to keep going back to the same spots to do different quests or to do different stories. Eventually, a time jump occurs, and then you kind of play an older version of your character, and you get a few different weapon options at that point. I think it's just like daggers or knives and short swords, and then you get like two-handed swords and spears in the second part of the game. I've really enjoyed using a spear. You also gain different spells for Grimoire Vice to use. He's kind of like the turret kind of robot that you had in Nier Automata, where you can kind of just hold down one button, and that button, the robot will keep firing. You can do the same thing with Grimoire Vice. You can be using magic at the same time as you're hacking and slashing. So it's got that kind of, I guess, combat synergy, or that just a nice feel to it, right? Like, you're doing two different sources of damage, and the movement feels good, kind of jumping, dashing behind the characters and the enemies and stuff like that. All of that feels good. It just feels a little bit less complete or polished, maybe, than Automata. And again, I never played the original Nier, so this is my first go around with this game. I don't know how different. I can't say how different it is than the original game, but I do think Replicant is fun, especially for fans of the series. I would definitely recommend playing it. I don't know if I'm going to go through all the endings. I'm going to get the first one and then see if I want to go through all of them. I know it's kind of built in with these games that you do most of the endings. By the time you get there, you might as well. It's usually not too much cleanup work to go through all the extra endings as well. So I may end up doing that, if not right away. But yeah, Nier Replicant's really fun. It's got that same kind of weirdness to it with some of the storytelling, some of the people that you run into. It has some of the same character names as people you encounter in Automata, even if they are different. Obviously, the art style is very similar. A lot of the characters, the human characters that you meet, are the same as the protagonists in Automata as well. But yeah, I'm digging it a lot. David, you mentioned just before we started recording that you did, or maybe at the beginning of the episode, I can't keep track of time, that you kind of dropped off after a few hours. What was it about Nier Replicant that didn't kind of grab you like Automata might have?
It felt more fetch questy, I guess, to a certain degree. Like, I remember the town. There's like the house that you live in, and then the sister that's sick.
Yeah.
And then I remember getting quests from the librarian, and I remember going to towns like outside,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was like a valley. There was like a town valley, I think, where
Yeah, the Eyrie or the Airy. Yeah, where
yeah, and then
all the
there was
town,
like
like the
an
village, where all the towns like on the mountainsides, and there's a lot of ladders and bridges and stuff.
yeah, and then there I remember meeting going. There was like a ocean town that I went
Oh
to
yeah,
after that.
seafront. Yep, yep.
Yeah, and then I think I stopped playing around the time. It's Kane, right? Ever her name?
Kaine, I think. Kaine.
Kaine, yeah.
Yeah.
I think she was just introduced, and I stopped shortly after that. But now, correct me if I'm wrong. There's no fast travel, right?
No, there isn't, and
Okay,
they make fun of that in the game. Actually, like, I don't know
yeah,
if it's the main character or Grimoire Vice, but one of them talks about either why there shouldn't be fast travel, or why isn't there fast travel, something like that. I thought that was funny.
I think that was my main beef was the
Yeah,
fact because I was like, oh, I gotta go all the way back to the main town, and then I gotta go all the way back to the canyon place, and then I gotta go all the way back to the ocean, and I think that started to wear on me, and then
I think that's a fair
yeah,
criticism, and the game doesn't really abandon that. Instead, it uses that distance between areas to deliver like so characterization. So you'll get interactions between the main character Kaine and Vice, and then another character you meet, Emil. Like they will talk to each other a little bit as you go on that little bit of a journey between towns. And because the world's small, I can kind of understand it. But yeah, it does, especially early on, it does have a feeling of being too fetch questy. And then if you do more of the side quests are very, very much like that as well. Like go out, kill somebody, go out, collect like 3 of this thing, bring it back. I haven't been doing many of the side quests. I kind of collect them, and then if I happen to complete them in passing, then I'll return them. But other than that, I've just kind of been focusing on the main story, and I am enjoying it. I don't think it's blown me away like near Automata. I have to keep thinking before I say that. I'm like, is that how I say it? But Replicant's fun, and again, as a fan of these games, I am happy to finally be playing it and seeing it through. It may do some interesting things with the endings that I'm looking forward to seeing. I know Automata did that for me as well. Even just switching protagonists, things like that is fun. You would love Kaine actually. She's constantly swearing at everything. Like
I do
it,
remember
she's a real
enjoy like
hothead. Yeah,
yeah, well, like I think the first meeting, like she just loses it,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah,
And
there was an
she's like
immediate
that throughout. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, where I liked her right away, but
Mm.
yeah, and I'm trying to remember because I think we both got it at the same Christmas because
Yeah, I
and
think
then
so
we're like,
too.
yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
I remember.
podcast about it, and then I think it was like right before the release of some like really big games,
Probably.
and
Always the
we
case.
just just got distracted, and I think I might have like played it in the summer after or something, and then
Yeah.
yeah, just like okay, I'll come back to this one day sort of thing, but
Yeah, I think it's worth going back to and just putting a little bit more into it. I did find the bosses are fun. Like there's still that spectacle of them, and like having to move around to different parts of the arena to beat them, or use combinations of magic and then your weapon attacks to take them down. I'm finding the bosses a little bit easier than in Automata. I thought Automata is a harder game overall than Replicant. Nier feels like it's, I don't know, maybe a little bit more approachable or accessible in that regard in terms of the challenge level. I think more people will be able to get into it. And then so in that way, it might be a good one to start with if you haven't played either of these games, and just know that I think Automata builds on it and probably ultimately is a better game. But Replicant's fun, and I am kind of slowly making my way through. I'm probably going to finish in the next week or so, and again, we'll see how many of the endings I end up doing. But yeah, I'd recommend it to people, and it is an infinitely better game than Infinity Strash. So I can definitely confirm that much at least.
yeah, we'll keep on the Square Enix train here, and I'll discuss my latest backlog dive here. But before we do, I just wanted to intro in. We got Casey Gibson joining us now. He's
Hello,
been
hello.
we're in this thing of we're all in these different. Well, you and I are in the same time zone, so
Yeah, a
it's
little
easy enough
easier.
for us. But with Paige and Jordan a few hours away, we sometimes have these funny schedules. But we got you in now, and yeah, we're finishing up our talk. We're into the backlog dives now,
Mm.
and yeah, so Jordan's played a couple Square Enix games, so I guess I'll keep on mine before we jump to you. But
Yeah, it's a shame that you picked one of the worst Square Enix games, but
and I'm hearing about it too. I'm getting ribbed. I'm getting ribbed hard in the Discord.
really all over. You're taking it from every angle, huh?
Yeah, just yeah, it's one of those things. It's like this. I haven't heard too many people praise this game or defend it, so it's an interesting playthrough. But I kind of blame the PlayStation Essential
Did
package
you
though,
say the
because
name yet? By the way,
sorry.
did you say the name of what you're playing?
No, it's Kingdom Hearts.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah,
Everyone's
so
like,
it's
"What's he talking about?"
I know.
They're like, "Balan Wonderworld." What?
Yeah, I did buy that. It's in my backlog, so
Oh,
one day. Yeah,
you
it
poor
was
son
super
of a
cheap
gun.
at GameStop, so I had to get it.
Good old Yuji Naka.
Yeah, PS5.
Free Yuji.
Yeah, Gotta support that Square Enix. They're losing money. But yeah, so Kingdom Hearts, I bought it for the PS2 like ages ago, like when it first came out, 2002 or whatever it was, or 2005.
I remember the hype around then was crazy.
Oh, it was wild, yeah. And I remember playing. So it's funny because I always thought I stopped in the Aladdin stage, but then I got to the oh, what's her name, the Little Mermaid stage, and then
Oh,
I
yep.
was like, you know what? I remember this boss really pissing me off. This might be where I actually stopped.
That was the kicker.
Yeah. So I'm yeah. So
Was that the
anyway, I'm
second boss, like kind
sorry.
of thing? Was that like the second boss?
Yeah, I was. So it was yeah, like the well, it was you know what's funny? It was the first boss in both levels because in the Aladdin level there was the Cave of Wonders boss who, and it's always these weird ways to beat them. So the Cave of Wonders is like the big tiger heads that's made out of sand or whatever. And so the only way to damage him was to hit his eyes, which at the time I understood. It's like, okay, I can see his eyes. It was trying to get up on top of his head to hit the eyes
Yeah,
that was
getting
annoying me.
there was the problem.
Yeah, so I feel like that's where I stopped playing because the boss after that was Jafar, and I don't ever remember fighting him. But then I got to the Little Mermaid stage, and then there was this boss Ursula. There's like two phases of Ursula, and I don't ever remember getting past the first phase because it's this weird setup where you have to hit her cauldron with magic at a specific time so that it kind of knocks her down so that you can hit her. And I don't ever remember knowing that at the time, and I wouldn't. I was too young to Google. I don't even know if we had an internet in the house at that point. But
Well, I was gonna say, how old were you when you first played it, give or take?
oh,
Like high school? Are we talking middle school?
would have been high school, I think, because what? I don't know. I guess it would have been in maybe just entered university. Maybe I guess
Yeah,
I might have
all
been
right.
in
So
university
Kingdom
now.
Hearts came out in 2002 originally.
Okay, so I yeah, that would have been like first year or second year university.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So I was still living at home, so it must have been first year because I did my first year at home. So
Mutant.
yeah, yeah. So
My
I
brother
was
did that too. Yeah.
yeah I was I think 20 at the time, and so I mean I wasn't really into Disney per se, but I was a Square Enix boy then, just as I am now. So
Through
I
and
picked
through.
it up. But yeah, so now anyway, the whole reason I picked it up was because it was the HD version is in the PlayStation Plus package that I have. So I thought, I've been bouncing off games for like since Baldur's Gate 3. Maybe I'll finally knock a game off my backlog, and it's been fine. The other reason is Kingdom Hearts 4. Kingdom Hearts 4 looks pretty insane with like the
Mm.
Sora in real life thing. It looked pretty
So you're
pretty cool.
hoping you like this so you can buy the new hotness, if you will.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, well, I'm not gonna start with 4, so
Yeah. I'm not an idiot.
yeah, so and I'm like, I'm not gonna read all the story because there's too many games. So I'm like, maybe I'll play like the first 3 or something, and then we'll go from there. But I'm not regretting it yet. Not yet. I'm at so like I said, I got past where I stopped before for sure, and now I'm in the second phase of Ursula. But last night I was about to throw my controller through the television. I was so mad. So we'll see how far I can get. But yeah, I'm just trying to knock another backlog game off. So seems all
Yeah.
right. It definitely looks and plays better in the HD version on my PS5. I'll give it that much.
Mm. Well, yeah, I was gonna say that's the bad thing about the enjoying RPGs so much, right? Is that by the time you knock one game off the backlog, like four more have already piled on.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a never ending losing battle, but
And it doesn't help that Steam keeps emailing me that stuff on my wish list is on sale.
yeah, I can only imagine. Did you see Perry got a Steam Deck?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
He bought
I
one
could
used off of
see him
Craigslist.
getting lost in that pretty quick.
Well, did you see what his first game was? It's actually sort of related.
Oh no. Yeah.
Sekiro.
Oh really?
That's the first game he decided to go to on his Steam Deck, which is funny because he hasn't played any of the other Souls games or anything, and that one's regarded, I believe, as the hardest. So
Yeah, I've heard that. He's
interesting
looking to
choice,
break it
but
over his knee,
he
I
seems
guess,
to
eh?
be like, yeah, Yeah, he wants to own it for about a week, yeah, and then he can
Yeah.
break the Steam Deck and go back to the Switch.
Yeah. But you've been on a big From Software kick. So how's your Dark Souls playthrough going?
Yeah. So yeah, after Armored Core, we ventured back into Dark Souls. I originally played a little bit on the Switch. It's funny. I felt like I barely played any, and then like there were definitely some like deeper spots. So I was like, oh, I sort of remember this, but definitely pretty early in the game. I guess there'd be some light spoilers, but essentially, like when you first start out, there's like the main objective is to sort of ring these two bells, and then I definitely did not ring the second bell, and I don't even know if I rang the first bell the first time, but this time around, definitely been doing a lot better. So I think it's interesting. Like the first time, I feel like was right. I don't remember when it came out for the Switch, but it was definitely still when like I feel like the Switch was getting tons of games. We were still trying to play everything. So I feel like it was I went with the mindset of like, oh, I just want to beat this game real quick, more or less, and like move on to the next one. And that's totally not a good,
No.
sort of mindset to go into a Dark Souls game or anything like that. So I think I was screwed from the get go, more or less. This time, I've I mean, the next game coming out that I'm excited for is Wonder, right? Mario Wonder, which is at the end of this month. So it was one of those like I've got nothing, I'm just chilling, and been loving it. It's it's funny. I looked at how many hours. I'm at 34 hours played right now, which is funny because
Ooh.
it did not feel like that. I was surprised. I thought I would have been maybe closer to the 20ish. It's one of those games, and it doesn't always happen, but like right when you find that game where it's like, man, like, oh, I've got 20 minutes to play, I'm firing it up, like screw it. One of those games where it's just like, yeah, I haven't more or less haven't been able to put it down. If I had free time and I've been playing any games, it's pretty much been Dark Souls, and it's just awesome. So I'm playing on PS4, well PS5. It's a PS4 game.
Mm-hmm.
Looks really good, runs really good, and it's funny because like I have played some Elden Ring, not a ton, but you go back and it's definitely like slower paced, right? Like things are a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Not I don't know, convoluted. That's what I'm going for. Anyway, yeah, like the forward isn't exactly the path isn't exactly cleared. How to move forward in the game. So it is again one of those like the first time around, when I'm trying to sort of rush through it. Again, not really good mindset, but this time, like I said, I've just been sort of taking it easy. Like I have looked some things up. Like for instance, I forgot to ring the second bell, and I was like in a different area, and I like looked something up there, and I was like, oh man, I'm way ahead of myself here. You know what I mean? And it was actually cool because I actually just recently revisited that area in the game. Now much later, I'm much stronger, and I went in there and I'm like, oh, this area was a piece of cake. So it's cool to feel the power gains over the course of the playthrough. But yeah, it definitely is a little convoluted with how to get forward some and where to go. So I don't think it's necessarily a horrible thing to look up a guide or anything, but essentially now I've gotten to the point after you ring those two bells, more or less you'll fight a boss and you get something called the Lord Vessel, which is awesome because it lets you fast travel between certain bonfires, not everywhere, but definitely makes getting around quite a bit easier. So I've gotten that. Now it's like, hey, go kill 4 bosses, come back, and then I believe that'll be like sort of the now go. I don't know if there'll be 1 boss, 2 or 3, how many, but that'll essentially be the end of the game. So I'm getting pretty close, and I'm actually on the 4th boss right now. So yeah, it's like I said, I've been 34 hours. It definitely doesn't feel that long, but man, I've just been having a lot of fun. Now, you said you've played a little bit of this, right? Or
Yeah, it's funny. So I just looked it up. It was 2018 when the Dark Souls came out on Switch, which I wouldn't have
oh
guessed.
yeah,
I would have thought like 2020, 2021 or
it's
something. I
funny.
can't believe it was that long ago.
I was thinking 2020 as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2018. Yeah, so I played this game a little tiny bit 5 years ago.
Yeah. So
And I'm pretty sure the Switch is 30 frames too, which is a little.
oh yeah. So I remember playing it back then, and I think I got decently far. It's funny, the feeling of progression is insane, because I remember like just starting off in the game and thinking like, man, this is really really hard, and then when I finally rung the first bell and just realizing like all the areas that I thought were really hard, I'm just like bombing through now.
Mm,
So it's like you kind of get used to it, you get the good feeling for it or whatever. And I I remember, so I remember ringing the first bell on top of the church, and then I remember going down there. So when you go back to like the main hub there, you could start going down into
hmm
like a swamp or something, and I think that's when I ended up stopping. I remember there was
Blight Town.
Blight Town. That's it.
Yep.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
where I
that's
ended up
yeah.
stopping.
Yeah, so you would have, and I guess a little bit more spoilers. If I feel like Dark Souls, it's like I guess you could spoil the game, but most of it is enjoying the bosses and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, you work your way down Blight Town, and then you go fight this boss, this like spider boss, and then the bell's there, the second bell. Then you'll go do some other things, and then eventually you need to like continue down further there, and that's actually the area I'm in right now is beyond Blight Town, and that further down beyond the second bell. But yeah, like you're saying, the progression I think is what's like awesome about it is since everything can kill you pretty easily, right? Like I mean, you can go into autopilot sometimes, but like there have been plenty of times right where you're so autopiloting and then you just get like clowned
Wrecked.
by like like two little dinguses, you know what I mean? And you're like,
Yeah.
but what I like about it is like the first time through an area, yeah, you're sort of going slow, taking in, finding like where the enemies are, and like if they're new enemies, how to deal with them. Then it's like okay, you might die a few times. Then you get the trick, you get through, and then all of a sudden you get to like, oh, there's the boss, and then it's like, oh, there's probably some sort of switch or something I need to do that will open a path. That will help me cut off a lot of this backtrack time, right? Because Dark Souls, as everyone knows, you're gonna be fighting the bosses, you know, ranging from a couple times to a lot of times. So the run back can be a big pain in the butt. So any way to cut that down. So it's always fun to like find that shortcut and then be like, oh, now I don't have like a 4-minute run back. I've got like a minute run back.
Yeah.
And it's funny too with how they're known for being difficult games. Obviously, in the beginning, that is definitely true. But I feel like as your character gets stronger too, like, and this is something I actually had to look up because I feel like the game didn't explain it very well. But the bonfires, right? You can actually, sort of kindle them up so you get more health potions. So you have to like use a humanity or a couple of them while you're not at the bonfire. Then you go to the bonfire, reverse hollowing, and then you can kindle the fire. But essentially, you can kindle that a couple times and get up to 20 health potions. So it almost feels like, I mean, like, sure, you could still get bodied by a boss and just not be able to get the health potion off. But I feel like with 20 of them, and then like now I've done a build where it's called a Zweihander. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. I'm pronouncing it how it's spelt. For better or worse. But essentially, it's like a real big sword, and it like rests over your shoulders, right? So I'm using it as a two-hander, and I've imbued it with fire, and I've just gone all endurance and health, essentially leveling up. So like I hit hard, and like I've got quite a bit of stamina, so I can dodge around. And it's a big weapon, so it uses a lot of stamina. But yeah, I feel I don't not unstoppable, obviously, like, but there have definitely been some bosses I've gone into in one shot or two shot, where I was like, like maybe if I only had 5 potions, this might have been harder. But like when you got 20, you can almost be like, well, I can just eat some of these hits if I have to. If you know what I mean, if I'm still pumping out damage, like I'll take some
Yeah.
damage in return. Doesn't really matter. But there are definitely some toughies, you know, but I think there's only been one or two bosses that like I really spent a lot of time on, but most of them haven't been too bad. And I ordered the trilogy on off eBay.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so my plan is I don't know if it'll be right away, Like I feel like I'll want a sort of bit of a breather, instead of just like, you know, railing 1, 2, and 3 right in a row. But I feel like after I beat 1 here, I might finish up Tears of the Kingdom because I'm pretty close, and then start 2 after that. So yeah, I've been really like, it's like I love it. I love this game. It's it's super fun, and like there's so many different weapons you can mess with too. So it's not even I you sort of get locked into one, right, because of how you're sort of distributing your levels up and everything. But it's like I could definitely see why people play this game over and over again. Like, oh, I'm going to try a new build, or different things in that sense. But yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Cool. Yeah, it's I've enjoyed it when I've played it. I actually picked up the PS4 one that you're talking about, the Dark Souls remastered for PS4, and played it on the PS5, and yeah, it plays great. It's
Yeah,
a
I
different
bought it
experience
off.
from Demon Souls, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah, it's funny. I was sort of thinking about like what I liked better, like sort of where Demon Souls, for those that don't know, it's level based essentially, right? Like there's
Yeah,
a hub world. You zap over to a different area, you go sort of do what's over there, and like you'll revisit those different areas as the game goes through. And then Dark Souls is at one. Like I said, I don't know about anything else. So I'm assuming they're similar, but it's a connected world, right? Where it's
yeah,
like there'll be shortcuts to get around to different areas, but you could run from point A to point B, if you wanted to. Where Demon Souls, you zap around.
yeah. I
And,
also
and
like that you could cheese with magic in Demon Souls, where that doesn't really exist in Dark Souls.
see, it's funny. I just don't use magic in these games. I feel
Yeah,
like yeah, like I said, I invested every actually I put what I needed to get into strength to use the sword. I wasted 2 levels on dexterity because I thought I was going to do a halberd build, and then the rest have literally been endurance and health. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into the other games too at some point. But I think it's funny because normally I would be like, yeah, Demon Souls, definitely. I like that sort of formula better, but after playing Dark Souls, like, oh, it's so good. Like, oh, the
yeah.
Firelink Shrine, dude. Like, is there a better place in video games? Is there? I
Why?
don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Dark Souls was like, I just think the world was designed better, like to have it all one, like very just continuous world.
Hmm.
I think it flows a bit better when you're always there, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's more enjoyable to explore, I think. So
Although the Demon Souls, the prison of Hope, is still like one
yeah,
of
it's pretty
the
good.
coolest places in games I've ever been. Like, it's
Yeah,
so cool. Oh man, but that's why I like Dark Souls too, because like there are a lot of really cool spots in Dark Souls too that like you just sort of like, ooh, let me just take a second to look around.
yeah. Well, it makes me curious. I can't remember. Is there another Dark Souls on the way? Like, what is From Software doing after this?
It's funny. I looked up that actually shortly before because I was like, I know they, that Armored Core, came out recently, and then before that was Elden Ring, and then before that was Sekiro, however you say it, in 2019. So
Yep.
I'm sure they've been cooking on something. The last Dark Souls to come out was 2016. I mean, and then they remastered the other one in
Mm,
2018. But original, so I mean, at this point, that's 7 years.
yeah.
So yeah, I don't know
Bloodborne
if
2, maybe?
ooh they real they got to release a Bloodborne remastered or up port with 60 frames. If I can't believe that's not 60 frames, dude.
I know. Right?
Like, and it's a
It's hard to
PS4
notice. It's
game. Like,
yeah,
because I played some Bloodborne when it first came out too. Not a ton, but I feel like after playing a bunch of their other games at 60, it would be tough to go back to Bloodborne, right? I mean, I'm sure I could do it,
yeah,
but if I end up doing the Alex Kalafi where I go and play every FromSoft game or every Souls game, like Bloodborne would probably be last, just because like the holdout for a 60 frames version.
yeah. Well, we'll have to see.
But yeah,
Cool.
whatever they release is usually a banger. So
Yeah.
it should be good. Whatever they're working on
Mm.
next.
Well, and you're a From Software boy now.
Yeah. Who knew? And you
Yeah.
know what's funny too? Like I was looking at their list, and I knew obviously that they did the most recent Armored Core. I thought that was like someone else did the other ones, and that they were like, oh, let's just we're From Software. If we want to do something, like like if they wanted to do a property, I'm sure most people would be like, yes, please.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't realize they made all the other ones too.
Yeah. No, it was surprising to. I remember hearing about them making those games, but
And
you
Kingsfield,
still just
yeah,
I don't know. You just don't. I hear From Software, and I always it just goes straight to
Souls,
Souls.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, nope, they didn't exist before or after.
Yeah, they even made a Monster Hunter spin-off for DS,
I
3DS.
saw Monster Hunter Diary, and it's
Yeah.
funny. You click on the box art, and it's like the cutesy wootsy, colorful happiness, and it's like these are the same people that make Dark Souls and all those games. I
Yeah,
guess
they're
that's the
also
talent, right? They got range.
yeah, I see they also made a VR game in 2018. It
Hmm.
looks I think it's oh no, it's the player takes the role of a fairy in an isolated boarding school who attempts to solve a mystery in virtual reality via the PS VR headset.
Huh. Yeah, I'm looking at that right now too. How would you pronounce that name?
I don't even want to try. Dare,
Der
dear, there's definitely Dear,
Deracine,
yeah, I don't know. Those
something like
are I'm
that.
pretty sure those are French Asante Goose. So
Deracine, and there's I don't know, the E's with the little apostrophes over them. I don't know what they're called.
yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
It's
Well, it's
looks
not
like it
for
got
VR too, so I can't play it.
yeah, yeah. Well, it looks like it was only rated around 6 and 7, so it was their PSVR debut.
They probably knew that's like we can't keep having this track record of amazing games. Like, let's just poop out one bad one. It'll be a VR game, and then we'll get back to our
Then
winning
we'll
ways.
then we'll just move on. Yeah,
That's funny to see too. Sekiro, the PS4, Windows, Xbox One, and Stadia.
Stadia.
Poor Stadia.
Yeah,
Well,
it came
yeah.
and left as soon, or it left as quickly as it came.
Yep, 2019 to 2023. That's so funny. Discontinued. They have the 3 years, 1 month, 30 days.
Oh man. Well, this seems like a good place to wrap it up. Jordan, why don't you?
So as it turns out, Nier Replicant was the game that I played instead of playing our next 5-hour game. So we will be getting to that soon. I think we've mentioned it on earlier episodes, but Death Stranding will be the next 5-hour game that David and I talk about. So they were kind of both sitting on my PS5, and I'm like, I really want to play Nier Replicant. I've been putting off for so long. So once I'm done with Replicant, I'll be getting into Death Stranding. David, I think it's already gone through at least the first 5 hours of Death Stranding, so that'll be our next one. If anyone wants to join us for that, I believe it is free to PS5. I know it was free to PS5 owners, even if you were like an early adopter of the console. I don't know if that's still true, and obviously it'll belong to one of the PS Plus tiers as well. So you can find that there. But yeah, thanks everybody for joining us for a discussion of some old games that we wanted to devote some backlog, or maybe clear up some backlog space from. And sorry for Infinity Strash. Yeah, it's just not one that people want to be playing. But yeah, that's all.